This podcast is generally served as a platform for people to tell their stories or tell stories about other people, or mainly I'm just here to be the storyteller. Well, I'm going to give the playbook over to my guest because I'll tell you what, his story is one for the books. I mean, you think that you're talented. I mean, my man is, he's probably Mozart inside of Michael Jordan at this point. Nah, that's probably an overstatement. He could probably attest to that. It's not that way, but he's a very skilled musician as long as a very skilled basketball player. So let's get right into it. And welcome everybody into episode 115 of Hoops Across the Mountain State. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy. You can follow me on Twitter at Taylor_Kennedy7 for all the latest about this podcast. And again, let's get right into this. My guest is a Buckhannon native, and he's the only West Virginia native on West Virginia, which we'll get into later in the program. He played high school basketball at Buckhannon-Upshur for the Buccaneers, averaged 7 points his senior season. Then he went on to West Virginia Wesleyan on a music scholarship, then got involved with basketball. And as a junior, he led all of Division II in rebounding, and he earned all MEC first team honors. His senior season, he thought that was good. He did even better his senior season, going 23 points, 12 rebounds, earning Division II All-American honors. He has since played for Salt Lake City Stars and the Memphis Hustle in the NBA G League. And he's also played professionally around the world, making stops in Australia, Denmark, France, Portugal, and most recently in Romania, where he spent last season, where he averaged 11 points and 8 rebounds. And when he played in France, he was a teammate of former WVU guard Juwan Staten. So without further ado, please introduce Mr. Tanner McGrew. Tanner, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I don't know if I have anything else to say. I think you got it all out. So,
well, that's it. That's the end of the episode.
That's perfect.
But no, man, how's everything been for you? I mean, I know you're in off-season mode already, but not really off-season mode because you're about ready to get involved with TBT. But how have these last few months been for you?
Yeah, they've been good. My wife and I bought a place up in Morgantown here, and so we've been kind of stationed here, working out with Kevin. John got in; he's been working with him as well, and I've been between here and Buckhannon. But actually, the last couple of weeks have kind of been vacation mode, off-season mode. I went to Cancun. My sister got married, and so we, I just sometimes it's nice to just get away, have a fresh start, and it was kind of good timing going into the TBT stuff. We start practice this week, so I'm able to be refreshed and ready to go now.
Well, I lied to you before we started. We're going to start with TBT first, and we'll work backwards. We'll work backwards this way, just because we're already starting to talk about it. So I appreciate that. But so let's start there then. How did you get involved with West Virginia?
So like you said, I played with Juwan Staten, and that kind of was probably my first intro to meeting some of the guys up here. I also played with Tariq Phillip and Javon Carter when I played with the Hustle. So there was just like this connection being from West Virginia. I knew Nate Adrian, not sure if he knew me, but I definitely knew him because I played against him in high school. So I had all these connections to guys that I grew up watching and also ended up playing with. So I just kind of like weaseled my way in and kind of made them deal with me. Kevin Jones and I, we work out pretty much every day that we're both here. So, I mean, that's kind of my guy who we work out together as often as possible. So just kind of a little bit of like connections with everybody. James, Coach James is like, I've spent some time with him throughout the last couple of years, and I think he saw what I was about and was like, let's do it. So now I'm here.
So you mentioned KJ, who's a friend of this program, who I had on a few episodes back, but what's that relationship like between you and Kevin?
It's great, man. We got a personal relationship, we have a business relationship, and then we have that professional basketball relationship as well. So he was actually at my sister's wedding. He's a close friend of mine. We do some business together. And so, I mean, we spend a lot of time together talking about different things. And, over the last 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years, maybe we've gotten pretty close, and he's one of the guys I'm closest with up here in Morgantown. So it's great to have somebody like that, especially like growing up, I looked up to him. I mean, he's not much older than me, but being from Buckhannon, the WVU guys are like the professionals of the state. So I looked up to Kevin and that age group. And so it's cool now to look at him as a peer and a friend. So,
well, you mentioned that as well about how you grew up watching these guys, and you're going to be playing with a few of these guys that you watched at the collegiate level, i.e., KJ, John Flowers, and even Devin Ebanks for that matter. What's that going to mean for you as a West Virginia native to play alongside these guys that you watched growing up?
It's obviously amazing. If you would have asked me that 6 years ago coming out of college, I would have said it's impossible. These guys are like the high level pros. But, over the last couple of years, I've kind of made some strides myself, and last 3 years, 4 years. And so I'm doing my best to see myself as their equal, or at least close to, and do everything I can to put myself at that level and be confident in what I do. So of course I'm excited just to represent West Virginia and to make my town proud, the state proud as much as I can. And it's an honor. So I look forward to it. I look forward to playing alongside of them and hopefully contributing at a high level.
Now, as West Virginians, the saying always goes that we wear our emotions on our sleeve. Are you going to have your emotions on your sleeve whenever you're running out for the first time, whenever you all take on Virginia Dream on Sunday evening?
That's something Jamel said. He said being out in front of that, Jamel Morris last year was his first year. He's also not a WVU alumni, but he got the opportunity last year, and he'll be back on the team. And he said, man, when you come out and the crowd's out there, it's a different feeling. And he's played in front of big crowds, so have I. But I think it will be a little different. I'm excited. I'm going to put all the effort out I can. If nothing else, you'll see a lot of effort out of me. I can't guarantee the quality of play. I can't tell you I'm going to score, can't tell you I'm going to do anything, but the effort will be there. No question asked.
So how do you see yourself fitting in with what Coach James Long and the staff that he's assembled and pretty much all the guys that you're going to be playing with? How do you sort of see yourself fitting in with everybody?
I've always said as a player that one of my best skills is being able to adapt to whatever I'm needed for. If a coach wants me to be a shooter, I've been able to adapt to that. If I'm supposed to be a bruiser, that's what I did in college, and I've got no issue with that. If it's more just facilitating and being a screener, that's something that I'm comfortable doing too. So probably the best part about me is that I'll do whatever they ask, and I won't complain about it. Even if it's, hey, sit the bench and watch us. I don't think it will be, but if that's what he says, I'm not going to be the guy who's down there, huffing and puffing, complaining. Whatever I'm asked to do, I try to do that to the best of my ability.
When you think back to these last few years playing professionally, because you had also mentioned that you've seen yourself grow these last few years, being able to play professionally, not only in the G League, but also overseas. How have you seen your game evolve over these last few years?
When I first started playing professionally, coming out of college, I was just a big man, throw the ball in the post, let me try to score layups. But as I got out into the professional level, I realized if I wanted to play at a high level, it wasn't going to be as a 5-man, it was going to be as a 4. And so I watched 4-men in the EuroLeague and Euro Cup and even in the NBA, and they're not down there posting up a lot. That's really not the role. They're spacing the court, they're slashing a little bit, and they're just kind of doing dirty work. And so I kind of made up my mind that, I'm going to become a shooter. And I could always shoot a little bit. It's not like I didn't have the capacity to do that, but the amount of work it takes to become a good shooter is very different than being a capable shooter. And so when I was in the G League, I became a good shooter. I was shooting at about 40% on, I don't know how many attempts, probably 4 or 5 attempts a game. But I had some games where I was shooting it well, and that's been a change that I've made for the better. But now I try to be able to do both. I don't want to just pigeonhole myself as just a shooter, because this last season I allowed that to happen at the first half of the season, and it was kind of to my detriment, because I could have been more physical and I could have actually asserted myself a bit more. And so in the second half of the season, I made that change, and it really boosted me to that next level in the Romanian league. So I had a good end of the season. And it kind of evened out the beginning of the season, which wasn't so great. And I ended up all right. So.
As a professional, I would assume that your work ethic has definitely changed. And again, I'm going to use the word evolve, because the style of play and the level of competition between what you played in the Mountain East Conference to what you're playing to in professionally are two completely different animals. but at the same time, you've kind of seen yourself grow not only as an X's and O's player, but I would assume that your work ethic has also really taken that next step into what you're wanting to become.
Yeah, it's funny because that's really what got me to in college to the level that I was able to achieve, was just the amount of work that I put in. I was in the weight room, sometimes 2 times a day, legitimately spending 3 hours a day, sometimes in the weight room. And that's not even touching a basketball. That's all just working on the physical aspect. So I was like, that was never an issue. It has never been, and I don't think it ever will be. Um, the issue is finding that balance, because whenever I was in France, I tried to keep that same mentality of just, I'll just outlift everybody. And sometimes that there's a detriment to that, where it takes away your skills. You're not putting enough time in on the court, or even just resting. I think there's just something to be said about work ethic and being able to rest effectively and efficiently. Because you don't get a lot of rest time. Most of the time you're on the court 6 days a week at least. Sometimes you don't get a single off day. So taking the time that you're off the court and using that to your benefit, and actually taking the time to rest, is such a crucial thing as a professional. And people don't really talk about it that much. You talk about sleep, and you talk about how hard you have to work to get there. But nobody really talks about when you're not practicing. What are you doing? Whether that's recovering. I'm not really big on the external modalities of recovering, like ice bath and the sleeves, the Normatec and stuff. It's not necessarily that. It's more just using your time efficiently and keeping your mind ready for that next time you're on the court.
You had mentioned the sleep factor. I've never heard an athlete say that the sleep is, something that they always go to. I mean, you mentioned how, you have these different techniques, you have this different equipment as well that allows you to heal externally, but then nobody really talks about the sleeping part of it. How this is going to sound really off the charts when I say this, but if it's like a really good day, how many hours of sleep are you getting?
So what'll typically happen, let's just call it an average day of practice. That would typically be 2 practices. So you might have something from 9 to 11 or 10 to 12. And then usually I'll try to get a nap in, whether that's, I don't like to go, 3-hour naps, but, an hour and a half, just to kind of reset. And that'll happen after lunch. And then I'll go to I'll probably take some time to kind of get myself awake and ready to go. I don't like to just wake up and go to practice. So maybe I'll shower, maybe I'll do some work on the computer or something. Then I'll go maybe grab a coffee, head to the second practice, which is usually when you're live. So you'll do, 5 to 7, 6 to 8, something like that, your 5-on-5 practice. And then I'll try to sleep 8 to 9 hours every night. During season, you'll very rarely see me getting less than 8 hours, because the one benefit to what we do is we don't need to be up at 6:30, 7 o'clock to get ready for work and then have to travel to work. Most of the time we live right beside our gyms, or at least close. Most of the time our practices are at pretty advantageous times, like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So, we can sleep until 8:30, sometimes even 9 o'clock. So if we get to bed by midnight, 11:30 to midnight, it's not really an issue. We're not missing out on that sleep. So some guys like to sleep earlier, some guys later. The good thing about what we have is if you can it doesn't take us an absurd amount of focus just to get those 8 hours. And you're usually so tired that you need them anyway.
So you are a warrior, because if you take a nap, it sounds like you just got everything set. You probably got 3 or 4 alarm clocks. I'm the complete opposite. If I take a nap, I'm out for probably 4 hours.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and I know that sounds really off the wall, but it's weird, because whenever people say how do you take a nap that long? I just go to sleep. I mean, it's practically like going to bed and you wake up again, you go back to bed. I don't know. I got something wrong. I know that people are like, well, we already knew that already. Well, there you go. There's a reassuring factor to it. But
if it's a game day, I'll get a pretty intense nap in typically, because we'll have a shoot around in the morning, and then I'll just try to sleep until I'll eat lunch and then just sleep until I need to be awake. I don't really look at it as like, oh, it's going to take away from your sleep tonight, because after the game, you usually have an off day. So I can be awake all night. It doesn't matter. What matters is going into that game. Am I rested? Am I prepared? And some guys don't like to nap on game day. A lot of it is personal preference. I look at the science and the studies that show, like, when you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep a night, it's like the percent of injuries is just like astronomical. It's a massive change. And from everything that I've read and studied, seems like sleep is one of those things that you can actually control, that has been proven to help you. Whereas a lot of those things, the ice bath, the Normatec, those are nice extras, but there's not really any proof that they work. Now, anecdotally, some guys say, I take an ice bath, I feel a million times better. And that's sweet. If you do it. But for me, I've always felt that getting an adequate night's sleep is like, there's just nothing better.
Now, are you the kind of person that likes to have something on in the background? Maybe it's music, maybe it's TV. Do you have something going on while you're sleeping, or are you just like, all right, just give me my pillow and blanket, I'm done, let's go to bed?
For just a typical nap, I like the TV on. I sleep with the TV on at night as well. If I'm super tired, it doesn't matter, but I try never to get to that point.
Because I feel like anytime somebody takes a nap, like you just said, you have the TV on, you're just trying to go to sleep for that matter. And I always feel like somebody has that TV show, or maybe they're just like flipping through the channels and they're just like, okay, whatever, this is gone. I'll be honest with you, if I'm taking a nap, I'm turning on Family Guy. That's just me. I don't know about you, but that's how I see it. 'Cause Family Guy just seems like a TV show that, like, I don't have to pay attention to it, and if it's
Yeah,
on, boom.
yeah. I mean, everybody has that thing. Everybody's got something that, like, that's their go-to. Um, I sleep with the TV on, but some people sleep just, it's got to be pitch black or else they can't get to sleep. Uh, kind of up to you.
Well, who would have thought we would talk about sleep?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, hello. But no, so I want to talk about you playing for the USA, for Team USA, because you actually played on their team back in 2019 for the USA Men's Basketball World Cup qualifying team. What was that like?
That was probably my greatest achievement in the sport of basketball, just because that is such a once in a lifetime opportunity, being able to play for Team USA. It doesn't happen for a lot of people. So I was blessed to just have a good showing when it was the right time, and a coach saw me and they needed somebody, and I got the call. And so, of course, I jumped on it. We went down to Miami for training camp for a couple of weeks. I ended up making the final squad, and went to Greensboro for 2 games. We played Panama and we played Argentina. We beat Panama pretty handily, and then actually beat Argentina at the buzzer. A guy named Reggie Hearn hit a shot that no human being should ever make. It was one of the wildest shots I've ever seen go through the hoops. So we were kind of lucky to beat them, but we had already qualified at that point, so it really didn't matter. Of course, it matters. You want to win for your country, but it wasn't a life or death situation. So,
And it seems like your career, I mentioned in the beginning that you are from Buckhannon. You were able to play for the Towns College in West Virginia Wesleyan. At first you were on a music scholarship, you played basketball. So that's one part. You wore that on your sleeve. Now you're a West Virginia native, being able to play for West Virginia. Boom, that's on your sleeve. Now you have this big achievement where you are a resident of the United States of America, and to be able to play for Team USA, regardless of the level of competition, it's still playing for your country. Talk about being able to put on a bunch of different hats throughout your career. Like I mentioned, being a Buchanan native, being a West Virginia native, and then also being able to play for Team USA. What has all of this meant for you?
every step I get to, I feel like my career has kind of happened in tiers. I've been through the high school basketball, which was, at the time, just having the success that we had in high school. Even it wasn't very much, but to us, it was a lot. Then I got to college, and making the team was massive. I got this. I got to feel like I was the man. I played college basketball. Then it's like, you know what? That's not enough. Let's keep fighting for this. And so I end up, the All-American stuff. It's like, wow, I had a really nice career to look back on. I was like, you know what? That's not enough. Let's keep going. And so I just keep working hard. And I mean, of course, I've been really lucky. Some of the positions I've been in have been a little bit of probably 90% luck and 10% me working hard. But I don't think you'll ever meet anybody that I've ever played with, against, or just even been in the same room, same gym with, that would say that I don't work hard and that I don't give it my all and try to do the right things day in and day out. And a lot of it is that taking advantage of the opportunities that come your way, because not everybody's going to get that opportunity to play for Team USA, right? But you're going to get a different opportunity that you've got to be ready for, and you've got to just reach out and take it. So I wish I could say it was all me and that I just worked hard for this stuff, but I've had an amazing support system. My wife, my family, my parents and my sister, and just about everybody in my life has played a crucial role in me getting to this spot. And so I try to never forget that or leave them out of any time I'm talking about this kind of stuff.
So we've talked about all the positives, but I'm curious about your answer whenever I ask this. But when you look back at your basketball career and you're truly analyzing what you did each and every year, if you could go back in time and do something differently throughout your basketball journey, what would that be?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that question, and I think about it often. So in Memphis, so I was traded from Memphis to Salt Lake City, and being traded at the time was just the same as being cut. I was just lucky that Salt Lake City needed somebody, because otherwise I just would have been at home. And so I look back at my time in Memphis, and I started the season with all this confidence, being in Memphis with the Grizzlies, working out. And then as I got to playing with the hustle, I saw all these talented people, and I was like, oh, I don't want to overstep my bounds. I don't want to shoot too much. I just want to fit in. And when you're playing in the G League, you cannot be like that. If you're like that, you're never going to have any success. You really have to go out with like a bit of a chip on your shoulder and just kind of like I'll do whatever I want kind of attitude. And it doesn't have to be in a selfish way. It just has to be a little self-serving in that way, because people are everywhere you go, people are looking out for yourself and your job and your in life. Everybody has themselves usually first, you know? So you just kind of have to be willing to maybe take that to the next level. So then after Summer League with the Jazz, I had the opportunity to sign an Exhibit 10 deal, which would have taken me to training camp with the Jazz. And instead I went to Portugal and played for FC Porto, which I loved Porto. I love FC Porto. I have a great relationship with those guys, the staff, the management, but I ended up breaking my leg the first season. And so I always look back at that and I'm like, man, what if I just would have taken that opportunity to go to training camp, showed up in shape, and like, what if I would have gotten an opportunity to play in the NBA? Now, who's to say? There's a good chance that never happens, but just based off the trajectory of my career and how things kind of came together, I mean, there's never say never, you know, there's always a chance. So I look back at that as probably something I wish I could have maybe not done differently, but I wish I could see how it played out. Like I had like a crystal ball and could see, had I done that, where would I be right now? That would be ideal.
No, absolutely. And I completely understand that because it seems like everything that we do, there's always a reason for it. And it's interesting that you keep bringing up the what if, because, you know, I even have those what if moments. I'm just like, well, what if I did this differently? Or what if I went down that path compared to this one? So it comes up a lot. So I understand where you're coming from that. But one thing I would like to ask you is, have you ever thought about your basketball journey being like an ESPN 30 for 30? Like you hear the opening crawl and all of a sudden you just start hearing, what if I told you a young musician from Buckhannon, West Virginia turned pro, now he's playing for his home state in the TBT? What if you saw somebody say, or somebody come to you and say, I want to make a documentary about you, what would you say about that?
I'd love to. I mean, I just don't know. I would love to like write a book or do like a small movie, but I just, of course, my story is not, you know, nobody knows who I am like that. But if you, Vice Sports did a mini documentary on me that's on YouTube, and they did a really good job just kind of showing where I'm from, what I'm about. And I think that would be awesome to expand on that, especially because that was before I broke my leg. So now with that, There's also a video on YouTube that I made that like kind of shows start to finish, which is really cool. I think that my story, if I ended up at a higher level, if in like for some divine miracle I ended up in the NBA, there's no doubt it would be that kind of story, because I don't want to say I started from the bottom, but I just started from a place that's just so atypical of most basketball players that it would make sense to do something like that. It'd be sick. I would love it, but I'm not sure it'll ever happen.
Well, for people that have not seen the video of Tanner with Vice Sports, I will leave that in the description. That way you can go back and listen and watch it, because I've seen the video. And I'm actually just scrolling through it at the moment just to see it, because you had mentioned it. I completely forgot about it, but no, that's interesting. So let's start talking about your basketball journey then. I mean, I know, again, people love asking you questions about how you got involved with it and everything else, but I want to start with the music side first, because I, for one, and I can speak on my own behalf, I am not musically gifted, and I have a lot of respect for people that can actually, play an instrument, perform, all that stuff. Where did this music talent come from? I mean, was it more of a repetition kind of thing, or was it more of just a God-given thing?
To be totally honest, probably more God-given. Both of my parents are relatively musical. Neither of them are like crazy musicians, but I just always really had a knack for it, rhythmically. I'd say rhythmically more than anything. And then I just enjoyed it. I really enjoyed jazz music as I got late into middle school and early high school. It's like that was the thing I was really looking into, and it was because it just, a little bit of it was because it's music, but it's also kind of just like a science. Like there's more to it than people realize, and it sounds kind of random, but in a very real way, it's very meticulous, and it only sounds good when people do it correctly. And that, to me, that I love that kind of stuff. So it felt like a Rubik's Cube doing music, which I can't do a Rubik's Cube, but so jazz music was just my thing. I ended up playing for the college jazz band my junior year of high school over at Wesleyan, and that was my transition to getting to Wesleyan. Dr. Moore was my professor, and he kind of recruited me and brought me in. So
You're like Superman.
I mean,
well, I would have said it more emphatically if you said that I can do a Rubik's Cube, because not a lot of people can do a Rubik's Cube. So if you were to say, yeah, I can do a Rubik's Cube, I'm like, okay, you're Superman or you're Batman. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, unbelievable. I love this story, and I just think it's so unique, and I just think it also just shows that don't always close the door on something. Would you sort of say that's how you would best define your basketball career, just from beginning to end? Just make sure that door is not all the way closed.
Yeah, I had such a passion for basketball like all my life. It's not like I lost that passion. I would say that just be willing to take a chance on yourself, because I had the coach come ask me if I wanted to walk on, and I could have easily been like, nah, I like hanging out with my friends, which it's just not worth it. But I was like, you know what? This is something that I never thought possible, and I'm gonna give it a shot. And so every day that I went to practice, I just tried to be prepared to do the things that I had to do, even if I wasn't the best at them or doing them at the highest of levels. I did what I could to just come and do my job every day, and I just got better and better as it went on. And so just being willing to take that chance on yourself is probably more important than anything.
So from the time that you graduated high school to when you played your first practice with the Bobcats, what was the longest amount of time that you did not pick up a basketball and play?
3-4 days, maybe.
That was it?
Yeah, I never wasn't around a basketball. I mean, there may have been a time where it was a bit longer. Like, for example, this last week in Cancun, I took a basketball in my. I asked the hotel if they had one. They didn't. So I took one I deflated it, took it in my suitcase, brought a pump with me. It was like, they didn't have a hoop, but for me, it was just like having a ball in my hands was the most important thing. Like, just to have that feeling of, ball handling and stuff. So it's always been like that. It's always been the case where, like, even if I'm not getting like intense workouts in, I'm gonna be around basketball somehow. I'll go play. Like the first thing I do when I get home is I go play with a group of men back in Buckhannon. Not because it's like getting me better, but I just love basketball. I love the camaraderie, being around those guys, the competition, and so it's just something that I've always like been so passionate about that there's no reason for me to put it down.
So where did this love for basketball come from?
My family's big into sports. I I like to think that I can dabble in just about any sport because of that. And so basketball was just the one that I I liked the most because it was so fast paced. And you know, there's so many points being scored. It made the most sense for probably my body style. Maybe football would have been more, to be honest, but it's just so slow for me, you know. And they were going to put me on the line as a kid, and I just had no desire. I wanted to be a quarterback. I wanted to run the show, and I wasn't going to have that opportunity, so I never played football. So basketball was the one.
That's interesting. So, okay, so let's take it from this then. We mentioned how you grew up watching the guys you're gonna be playing with in TBT, but looking back on in your youth, who were some guys that you really looked up to and you're like, okay, I want to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I want to try and see what I can do with that with my game. Did you ever look up to somebody like that?
Believe it or not, the guys that I looked up to weren't like professionals or even college players. They were guys around my community. So the names aren't going to ring any bells. There's a guy named Josh Allen who played. He played at AB, but he's from down in that area, and I grew up playing in tournaments with him and against him, and he was a bit older than me, but he was the guy that everybody feared, and nobody wanted to play against him because he just ran the show like that. He was that guy within what we were doing. And so I always looked up to him, had a lot of respect for him. And a guy named Scott Trent, he actually officiated my wedding. He was like, he's a little older than me. I almost said much older. Sorry, Scott. He is older than me. He's more like a father's age to me than a peer. And, but I always, everything that I did in basketball was looking up to him as the kind of guy that I wanted to be, both on and off the court. He's just like somebody that anybody who knows him respects him, and he treats everybody right. And so he was another guy that I looked up to a lot.
So the story goes, you averaged 7 points your senior season, and I was looking through your all's postseason play, and I want to start there. But looking at the teams you had to go up against in high school, and obviously you played against a lot of great guys. You mentioned how you played against Nathan Adrian, but when you look at your section and region, I mean, with your section, it was you all, Elkins, Bridgeport, Buchanan. Well, yeah, you all,
Mhm.
Robert C. Byrd, and Lewis County, and then in your region, you had to either go up against Martinsburg, Musselman, or Hedgesville.
Yeah.
So, how difficult was that just being able to play against a lot of these guys in your section and regional?
Yeah, we always felt. I don't think we ever got out of the section. Maybe whenever I was in school, maybe once, but I don't think so. Um, and the truth is, it was always really competitive. You know, we played Elkins, and we would beat them once; they'd beat us once. But we at Lewis County, we usually could beat, but it was never easy. I don't, to be unfortunately honest, I don't remember a lot from high school. I don't remember specific games. I don't remember the way that I played or how, like, all I remember. Maybe I've tried to block it out. Maybe it's like a trauma that I've
Trauma.
no, I'm just kidding. But I do remember just always looking at the Martinsburgs and even the Morgantowns as like unbeatable. There's just like they were just too good. And now I look back and it's just silly that we ever felt that way because they were high schoolers too. And I look at high schoolers all now and it's like we had a pretty solid team too. We had a good group of guys who probably could have done a little bit more than we did, but it is what it is.
So you get the Wesleyan on a music scholarship, and then just take it from there. How did everybody let me rephrase. How did everything fall into place? And then how did you just what caught your attention with it?
How I got on the team specifically, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Pat Beeline was my coach at the time, and he came up and asked me. I was in the gym one day, and he just asked, "Hey, we need a 15th guy. Do you want to come in and walk on the team?" He said, "You're probably not going to play very much, but you'd be on the team, and you'd be able to like to be around the guys all the time." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe that'd be cool." And I didn't think much of it. A couple of days later, he saw me again and was like, "Hey, have you thought any more about it?" And I was like, "Oh, so he's for real." So I talked to my parents. Came to a conclusion. First workout was conditioning, and it was not great, but I got through all of them and I made every time. And that was when I knew, like, skills aside, if I just show up and do this and I take care of the business like this as much as I can, it's all going to be okay. So from there, it just every year got a little better. Our new coach came in, Gary Nottingham, and he changed the way we played. So my junior and senior year, it was under him. And honestly, without that change of the style, I'm not sure I would have had the same success. Maybe I would have. I mean, you never really know. I put in a lot of time and effort, but sometimes being in the right situation is all it takes. So that's kind of how college happened.
So you were able to play for Patrick Beeline his first season being as a head coach at Wesleyan. It was actually his first head coaching job as well. What was he trying to do with you? Meaning, how did he try and fit you in with everything whenever you would go into games? How did that all play out?
I was playing a position just he did the same style offense as his dad up in Michigan with the two guard out top and so it probably would have played to my advantage now the way that I play. I look at all the colleges that and where could I have played D1 if I had to fit in somewhere. And I think I could have done well at Michigan just because of the guys that they've had over the years. I think that would be a place that I could have played and had some success. Now, not at the time, but now. So I think there was a chance for me. I don't know. It never really came to fruition. He had guys that were playing much better than me at the time. He had scholarship guys, so they always got the first run, and which they should. I never really got mad about playing time my first year. My second year, I got a little bit more frustrated because I was like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Why am I not getting in the games? And so when he left, it was kind of like okay, maybe this is a chance. And I actually wasn't going to play my junior year. And then I started working, started lifting. The new coach came in, and I found that rebounding the ball was where I could really excel. In those last 2 years, I had led the nation my senior year. Sure, I led the conference my junior year. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think I was like third in the nation or something that year. So those are things that you asked earlier. Like, you look back and it's like things that stand out, and like the wearing the things on your sleeve. And it's like, I remember my junior year seeing my name on like the top 10 list of rebounding and being just absolutely blown away. Like, what is happening? I felt like I was the greatest basketball player of all time and on a top 10 list. And then slowly I start working my way up. And then my senior year, I remember just thinking like, this can be my thing. Like, I can do this. And my senior year, I'm looking at the rankings. I'm third, fourth, start moving up second. And then I end up first. And I'm like, man, this is what I don't know how this happened, but this is all I had to do. So that's something I hold very closely is the ability to lead an entire country and in a statistic is not an easy thing to do by any means.
Go back to something you had just said, and that was you were getting frustrated with your playing time. And nowadays, with the transfer portal, when it seems like whenever a student athlete gets frustrated about anything for that matter, they're more than likely going to they're more likely going to leave. Let's just say it like that. They're more than likely to leave now compared to the last 10 years, which in my opinion, I'm sorry to make you feel old, but it's been 10 years since you were a freshman in college, so I apologize for that. But anyway, you mentioned how going into your junior year, you started working out again, you started finding out what really fit you and everything else. But before that, what really just made you just stay with it? I mean, obviously you were frustrated, you thought about not playing, but then obviously it's like in The Godfather, when you think you're out, they pull you back in. What
Uh-huh.
how were you like that whenever you're going through a tough transition from a new head coach?
Well, I have a very supportive family, but I also have my parents raised me to, once I start something, that just you need to finish it. And really their thought was, finish the year. And then after the year, you can decide. So when I found out Pat was leaving, it wasn't that Pat was leaving and, oh, thank God he's gone. It wasn't really like that. But I knew he was leaving. I looked at myself, and I talked to my parents. I talked to my girlfriend, my wife now. And it was like, I mean, I love basketball. It's like, what better, what else can I do with my time that's better, So why not keep trying? I mean, it was close. I was very close to not wanting to play. I had guys on the team reaching out like, no, man, give it another shot. And that's a part of the story I don't tell a lot, because I kind of forget about it. But not everything was rainbows and sunshine in college. I had a lot of times where it was like I was struggling through things um, that were where I wanted to stop playing, but I'm glad I didn't.
So, one of the things I really like to discuss with pretty much anybody on this program, and that is the mental health side of things, because obviously, as we've mentioned already on the record, you didn't come to college immediately playing collegiate basketball. You on a scholarship with music, then you get into practice. You're told what you think is what's going to happen whenever you get in there. That doesn't quite work out. You get frustrated going into your junior year. You're on the verge of quitting. I assume from a mental, not really like a mental health thing, but mentally, that definitely took a toll on you, because this was a sport that you really loved, as you have mentioned. And then it just seemed like the love for that was going away. Mentally, how were you able to cope with all of these moving parts?
I think every time I get to an off season, it makes it really easy for me because, like I said, I love basketball so much. So I finish the season, I finish school, and what's the first thing I want to do? It's not go and like take a month off from basketball. It's let's go get a workout in. Let's go play. Let's go have just a day of basketball. It's like I look at that as like, obviously I'm not ready to give it up. So why would I give up my best chance at playing the best basketball I can play? Mentally, I can say I've been lucky, blessed to never really have deal with many mental health issues. I don't know if that's something that I should say blessed, like the people who do aren't, but that's not really what I mean. It's more just like I can't relate to people like that, and so I have sympathy, of course, for anybody who deals with that. But I don't like to speak on something that I'm not super. I can't tell you how that feels, So um, a, a lot of that, I try to stay positive in everything I do, of course. But when you're dealing with very real mental health things that are like clinical, it's a different world. It's not the same as what I would go through when something goes wrong. Like, oh, basketball's not going great, I'm upset. It's not the same as somebody who's dealing with very real mental health issues, So it's a topic that has gotten a lot of traction lately, and I think it will continue to because of its legitimacy and how it impacts the rest of your life. It's like at the core of some of our biggest issues as a society may be mental health. And I don't have the answers, unfortunately.
No, it's all good. I just thought I would throw that question out at
Yeah.
you, but it's all good. Um, you've mentioned your parents a number of times now. When you look at all the different pieces of advice that has been given to you by your parents, could you just pinpoint one that really sticks out to you? And it's almost like your own slogan at this point, just because they always they always just harped on you, and they just always wanted the best from you.
It's probably something that I've had to change about myself that they taught me more than anything. And I don't mean that they taught me poorly, because it has its place in my life. My mom always wanted me to not be a cocky guy, not treat others like poorly and act like I'm better than people. And I have done my best to do that. I always try to treat everyone that I meet as my equal, and because I mean I'm nothing special, right? Now, when you get to some of the places that I've been, when I started playing, in the NBA stuff and in the Team USA, it's kind of hard not to get on that high horse. It can be tough because I was on cloud nine, and it wasn't that I was treating people bad, but everything is great. So I could never get too high. But my parents, my mom specifically, was always like, "Don't be too cocky. Don't be too cocky. You can be confident, but never cocky." Which in reality, those two are like a very thin line between them, right? And in basketball, sometimes you've got to be cocky. You've got to be confident. You have to think that you're the best player on the court, or else you're going to have trouble doing the things that need to be done, taking the shot when you're ready. And I struggled with that. I always have. Confidence is probably my biggest downfall as a player. I defer to others a lot. I'm not willing to take the big shots sometimes, and it's not because of them. It's rooted in that, just keep a low profile, do what you're supposed to do. Don't make a scene of yourself. But sometimes I've done my best over the last couple of years to just say, you know what, the worst that can happen is I'll fail. Let's just go try to be the man, miss the shot, be okay with that. So that's probably the thing. I know that's a long-winded way to say it, but that's pretty much all my answers are long-winded. So sorry about that.
No, I mean, you're fine. I mean, I'm long-winded as well. And it's like anytime I'm long-winded, something's eventually going to come out and everybody's like, oh, wow, he said that. So no, I'm right there with you. Believe me, we're both guilty. But when you look at the Mouse East Conference in its entirety, I've actually gone on the record numerous times on this program stating almost like a love for the conference. I love the style of play. I love the high energy. I love the players, coaches, whatever it may be. It's an overall great Division II conference. Mm-hmm. And you were able to play against a number of great guys in that league. I don't have the list up in front of me at the moment, but I will here in a second. But I had Haywood Highsmith on from Wheeling not so long ago, and he mentioned it about how much he loved it. When you look back on your time being able to play in the MEC, talk about just the love for it, being able to play against different guys from different areas. What was that like for you?
It's helped me form some relationships that I otherwise wouldn't have had. I mean, with guys that I played against and have that mutual respect for, like Jamel, Will Voorhees. I've talked to Seeger Bonifant a bit. Haywood's a guy that I played against for a couple of years, but he's a little later, a little younger than me, I believe. Brett Morris, I still stay in contact with Brett. There's a list of pros. Thomas Wimbush. I mean, I could sit here and I could name pro after pro after pro. And the guys that aren't pros were still super high level guys like Eric Seifert and just all these guys. I mean, seriously, I could name them all day of guys who were really high level players. And I had the fortune to get to play against them and to compete. So I look back really fondly on my time in college, and it's reassuring whenever I meet these guys that they treat me with the respect that I treat them with, because I can see that it's mutual, that they saw me as a nice opponent to play against and a very competitive nature,
Well, here you go. I found that we'll go based off the 2016 All MEC first and second team. So here we go. So you had Matt Bingya from Fairmont.
Bingaya, yeah.
Bingaya. I know I butchered the name.
Okay.
I apologize if Matt's listening to this. I'm sorry. But then you had Seeger Bonifant from West Liberty, Tyree Gator from Notre Dame, Haywood Highsmith, as I mentioned, Rob Reed from Concord, Eric from Jesuit, as you mentioned, Will Voorhees, who's a tremendous player. Then you go on the second team, Matt Day from UVA Wise, Justin Fritz from Jesuit as well, Zach Grosenbacher from West Lib, Devin Hohen from West Lib, Ryan McTavish, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Shepherd, right?
Yes, from Shepherd. Jamel, as you mentioned, you had Thomas Wimbush as well. Yep. I mean, you are right with what you're saying. That is a list of pros right there. I mean, you're even going to be playing with Jamel here in the next few weeks. I mean, that's just so unreal. Just looking through that list, and you're like pro, very successful, also a pro. I mean, that must be so unique for you. It's almost like a fraternity at this point. Would you agree with that?
For sure. We actually tried to put together a TBT team the last couple of years.
Right.
And I believe, I truly believe if we got everybody that was still playing, if everybody could be there, that's the issue. Every year we've had the thing where, oh, this guy can't play, this guy's not available. So then it starts to get a little dicey. But if we can have the best of the best, man, we would have a heck of a team. Teams would have a really hard time with us. I think that we could compete with the best Virginia team. I believe that because it's not like they're D2 pros. No, Thomas Wimbush is playing, he was just in the top league in France, just playing well, Will Voorhees he was in the top league in Germany, played in the G League this year. Jamel is now playing Euro Cup. I've had some high level playing time myself. Who else is still playing? There's just a list of guys, so I think we could compete. Haywood, obviously.
I mean, I was looking, you all did play against Best Virginia last year before they actually went down to Charleston and competed. You all played up at I should say, not y'all. You all played up in Wheeling Park. And I mean, I'm just looking to this team again. I mean, you, Will Voorhees, God Shamgod, Tommy Bolte, Matt Bengaya, Brett Arrington, Maurice Whitehurst, Norvell Carey. I mean, that's a group of guys, man. That is a group of dudes.
So we were missing a couple pieces that I think would have made it, like Jamel and Thomas, and maybe a point guard, because Shamgod was a little bit out of shape at the time. He's coaching now, so congratulations to him. He's doing great. But at the time, he wasn't the player that he was in college necessarily. So if we had the things that we would have needed, that probably would have put us above right over the line to make it competitive. I'm not sure we'd beat them, but no doubt it wouldn't be a blowout.
I mean, that's just so fascinating because, I just hypothetically, as a basketball fan, whenever I'm sitting down at the TBT, I'll be like, man, that'd be really great if we saw a team full of West Virginia natives being able to play in the West Virginia region and have a TBT team. But then obviously you all had an MEC team that almost was able to play in the TBT. I mean, it's just so unique at different outlets for the game of basketball, that you've been a part of. I mean, we've mentioned 3 already. We've mentioned Underground Kings as well, and now you're playing for TBT. So it's just a bunch of different things that I think is awesome and just so unique as well. So I'll ask you like this because I know I just hinted at it, but when you look at the game of basketball in your life, I mean, obviously we've mentioned it from top to bottom, this way, that way, up, down, side to side, however it may be. But when you look back at how beneficial the game of basketball has been in your life, if somebody were to say, how much of an impact has basketball had on your life, what would you say?
It's changed my life. It's my career. It is my life. Every day I wake up, I'm like, where am I going to work out? What does my workout schedule look like? How can I fit the other things I need to do? Because I've been buying some real estate up here in Morgantown, and so I have some work that needs done, every couple of days, and I have to find a way to fit that in around basketball. So basketball is it's the thing that I think of the most, and the impact that it's had on my life is just astronomical. It's put me in a financial position that I can be proud of. It's, knock on wood, let's keep it that way. It's allowed me and my wife to travel the world. We've gotten to see more in these 6 years than most people see in their entire life. And that's not trying to brag. It's just a fact. And it's something that I'm so happy for and appreciative of for the people who were a part of this journey so far, as I continue it, hopefully another few years. And, I thank my coaches. I thank like I said, my parents, my other extended family, that everybody who's ever had a hand in supporting me, the community of Buckhannon. I mean, I had a camp this last month and we had 82 kids because the parents, they trust me. They support me and they want their kids to be able to learn from someone like me. And that means more to me than they'll ever realize. The ability to impact lives through basketball has been another thing I'd be able to be proud of. So I'm just so happy. Basketball has been everything for me. So.
Well, you mentioned her, so let's give her a shout out because she had to help you with the technical side of things before we got on here. But give your wife a shout out. I mean, your wife, it seems like from what you just said, she's been able to stick around with you and just, as you mentioned, travel the world with you, being able to experience what you're experiencing as well. Maybe not at the exact level, but she's with you. She's with you. And I don't think a lot of professional athletes can say that their loved ones are with them almost all the time. So just give a shout out to your wife.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't mean to, what you're saying is absolutely correct, but I like to make it very well known that she's not just with me. Like, we do this together because so she owns her own business and she's able to work remotely and carry that business around the world. So it isn't, some of the situations that you see are, the guy goes over and the girl just kind of like follows him around trying to find little jobs, but she's been able to grow a business into something like amazing while we're doing this. And so it is such a collaboration between the two of us. We have to really think about things for both of us as we travel. I mean, we, like this year when we talk to a team, the goal is to get an extra room for an office for her because it's something that she needs to be able to function at the level she needs to. So I'm more proud of her than I am of myself because I watched her start from literally nothing with this business. Like, she started with 0 followers, 0 anything, a college degree, and she just started building, creating content and building. She's a graphic designer, so she can work remotely, which is nice. But she had to build the following and build the rapport and build the trust from her clients. So I can't say enough just how important that's been for our journey.
So when you look at your basketball journey, I know we keep talking about it. It's almost like the yellow brick road from the Wizard of Oz because it just seems like it just keeps going and going and going until you meet that goal. But you just finished playing in Romania, and I want to get to the professional side here in just one second about playing overseas. But what's next for you? I mean, again, it's like an ESPN 30 for 30 that just gets so prolonged. Everybody's just like, all right, what's the next episode? What's Tanner doing next? I mean, it's awesome just to see that you've been able to travel the world, but do you know what is next for you?
So I would like to play another 4 or 5 years. The goal is to get to year 10. And the reason I think that is because 10 years makes me feel like I had a career as opposed to like, hey, I tried basketball. It's like, yeah, I did it. And I was successful at it. And then after that, my wife and I would like to start a family. That's kind of when it becomes her show and I follow her and do whatever she wants. Once I'm done playing basketball, she makes the rules.
She wears the pants.
That's right. And that's fine with me because she's given up as much as we've gained just for us to be in the position we are. So, like I said, I've started buying real estate slowly. And I'm hoping one day if I can speak just hopefully as opposed to like what's actually happening, I would love to be like a general partner for deals with basketball players because I see basketball players having a lot of disposable cash because of the way that our incomes work. Most of our expenses are paid. And a lot of them are looking for places to park that money to grow and to make money. So at this time, I am not prepared for this, but in the future, I would love to kind of to put together bigger deals, buy larger apartment complexes, and because being trustworthy has its place in that, and I like to believe that I've shown myself to be trustworthy to my teammates and to the people who I've met. So that's the end goal for the next, or that's the goal for the next step of my life.
That's the last episode of the 10. We'll call it 10. You said you'll call that a successful career. We'll call it a 10-part documentary. Not quite The Last Dance, not quite.
Yeah,
but it's up there, maybe.
It's something like that.
You took it personally. That's all that matters.
That's right. Exactly.
So I mentioned all these different countries that you were able to play in. You just finished playing in Romania and had a great season. What's that been like, just being able to go and visit these different countries, learn the different traditions, the cultures, and even dine in at some real and have some really good cuisine as well? What's that like?
I mean, it's been enlightening to say the least. I mean, I've learned a lot about different cultures and how people work. I've learned that people are people, no matter where you are. It's more about the individual than it is about the general, like the generalization of that culture. I mean, obviously some things are going to be different, but at the end of the day, there's people who are good people and bad people, you know? So we've been blessed to be in some great places. Australia was beautiful. Porto was an excellent place to be. We liked Romania, honestly. I did a lot. You know, my wife did too, but I really liked it. France was great. Denmark was, you know, super cultural, and that it was like different than anything we've ever experienced. And so everywhere we go, it's something new. Memphis's food was amazing. Salt Lake City was mountainous. I don't know. It just, everything's got something that we've been able to hold dear.
Okay, so along with basketball, one of the topics I love talking about, and I know this is gonna make you really hungry when I say this, but it's food. It's food, and I gotta know because I talked with Haywood and he played overseas briefly, and obviously whenever I had KJ on, he mentioned whatever he's had over in Japan, but when you look at the different foods that you've been able to enjoy, what's been like what's been your favorite meal that you've had overseas?
Oh my gosh, my favorite meal I've had overseas.
Or maybe like 2 or 3. I mean, I know it's hard to just hone in on
Yeah.
one, but
So there's two things. There's a burger place in Australia called Betty's Burger. Betty's Burgers, Betty's Burger, one of the two. I forget. But it was the greatest hamburger I've ever had, probably will have.
wow.
And it was amazing. However, Australia's food overall wasn't very good. It wasn't big on it. Now, maybe that's because I didn't grow up with it. But Portugal, they had a lot of these like, I can't say I don't know what the word is, or I don't know how to pronounce it. But they're like barbecue places. So you go and you just order different kinds of meats. And it's like my heaven, because like it just has steak and different kinds of pork and chicken, and everything's grilled, and just, that's probably my favorite thing to eat if I could choose something.
Okay, so
Besides American food, which is so much better than
of
everywhere
course.
else.
Of course. I mean, you can't beat anything else, just saying. That's obviously Tanner's quote, not mine. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So along with that, I would assume the dessert was also very good overseas, because that's gonna lead me to my next question, and I hope you know where I'm going with this, but if not, it's fine. But favorite dessert overseas?
There were good pastries in just about every country. France had really great stuff, obviously. I mean, it was nice. The pastel de natas and or pastiche de nata in Portugal were nice. They're like a Portugal specific thing. They started in Lisbon, I believe, but they're really good. They're like a custard pastry muffin, not muffin. I don't even know what you'd call it, but they're good. That may be my favorite that we've had.
Okay, so is it better than the donut shop in Buckhannon?
Nothing's but those pepperoni rolls, man.
Good. Thank you. That's all I needed to
The
know.
donuts are good too, but the pepperoni rolls are obviously just life changing.
Okay, so now I gotta ask. I mean, this is like a typical two West Virginians having a conversation about food. Are you a stick pepperoni, or are you just a regular circle pepperoni in your pepperoni roll?
It's got to be ground pepperoni if I have the choice, but I don't mind. Oh man, I think stick pepperoni probably. It's because you get a nicer bite of it, but
That's very true.
man, just about any of them are good, aren't they? But the
Well,
ground
absolutely.
pepperoni, like the donut shop, is
It's
where it's
unmatched.
at.
It's unmatched.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So okay, so when you went to Memphis and you went over to Salt Lake City, what was your favorite thing to have down there?
Memphis has obviously great barbecue spots. There was also a place, I forget what it's called, but it's a diner down there. What is it called? I don't know. They have a French toast that we had
Ooh,
that was so good. It was like really nice French bread, which I had never seen French toast on French bread, which I guess it makes sense. There's also a pizza place on like downtown on Main Street called Aldo's, which was always good. And Salt Lake City, we went to Fleming's as a team. Fleming's Steakhouse is the best that I've ever had.
so going back to blues, I mean, I another thing I like talking about this as well is music. Whenever you mentioned how you were really into the blues, what about the blues just really made you just enjoy that? Was it the melody of it? Was the rhythm? What was it?
I think, like I said, just kind of like the science behind it, how it works and why the sounds fit together, and then also the creativity, the melodic creativity that some people have. I'm not big on just like people playing lines like big, crazy. I don't know. It's not really me. I like to hear something melodic that actually sounds pretty. That's my type of jazz music, blues, both. I mean,
Now, have you picked up a trombone recently?
I think I did whenever I got home this year, just for a minute. I don't play regularly, but I've played a couple times.
Is the wife like, what is this? Just no, we're done.
Yeah,
That's
nobody
the
wants
field
to
part.
hear it. That's why. That's why I buy guitars everywhere we go. Anywhere we go, I'll just buy like $100 starter guitar, and I'll just play it. When I was in Memphis and broke my leg, or Porto, and broke my leg, I bought a really, really nice guitar because I had nothing else to do. I was playing like 5 or 6 hours a day. I just devoted all my time to music, and I got pretty good again. But it just, once you start playing again, you run out of time to do those kinds of things.
Now, did you ever have to wear like those like tuxedos where like the flap goes all the way down like past your waistline whenever you're in like a recital? Okay,
No.
good.
Is that a morning coat? Is that the same as a morning coat? I don't know.
I have no clue. I just saw it because I saw it on the new
No,
Elvis
I never
movie.
had to. Just a normal
like,
black and white suit.
okay,
Black
good.
suit, white shirt. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure. Just looking out. That's all.
Yeah.
But a couple other things. So going back to music, I always love hearing what people's taste in music is. But if you're in the car and somebody hands you the auxiliary cord, what's your go-to? Like, who's your go-to artist?
Oh man, that's tough. I spend a lot of time around rap music being in basketball. So it's kind of funny, like jazz and rap are like, it seems like they'd be opposite, but in a very real sense, rap kind of derived from a jazz background. You know, it kind of started in that the African American impact on music, and so there's probably something to that. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I do. I probably would play some rap music, something popular, because that's what I like. Favorite artist? I don't know. I guess I like Lil Baby. He's kind of like popular right now. I also like. I mean, I grew up listening to 50 Cent. That was who I was like. I was convinced that I was like him for like 2 years. In a much more real sense, I grew up in Buckhannon, West Virginia, and I was an idiot. But you know, that's what I listened to for a few years.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean,
at all.
It was just me trying to pretend like my life was harder than it was. I wanted to be tough, and I just wasn't tough. So
I don't know why I thought of this, but when we were talking about jazz and everything else, I thought of the Michael Scott quote from The Office on the. Okay, let me start right here.
yeah,
And this is like the make or break thing. And have you seen The Office?
of course, like 20,000 times.
Thank God, because if not, then I'd probably never publish this to begin with. But anyway, whenever they're like doing the basketball episode and they cut away to Michael and Michael says, "Football is like rock and roll. It's just bam, bam, boom, and basketball's like jazz. You know, you're kind of doing the doopity doo kind of thing. It's all downbeat."
That's it. See, they actually fit perfectly together. Michael Scott had it right.
I don't know why I thought of that. My brain is an enigma. I don't know what it is, but good. I'm glad that we got that out of the way. I'm glad that Michael Scott was the last thing that we took care of, because
that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
How you transition from that, I don't know. I'm working on it. I just don't know.
That's just kind of, you got to end it all anytime. You need
absolutely. Well, Tanner, thank you so much for your time. This was really enjoyable, just being able to listen to your journey just from square one to what you're up to today. And I really do appreciate your time, and best of luck in the TBT in the next couple of days down in Charleston with West Virginia. So good luck with that.
Appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm sorry I got sidetracked a few times, but you know, that's what this is all about. Just kind of chatting back and forth. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, my man. I try and do as best as possible with storytelling. So you took the reins and you just kept going. You just kept going. That's all you did.
That's right.
But well, Tam, thanks again for joining me, and again, good luck in the next few days.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Have a good one.
Absolutely. That will conclude episode 115 of Hoops Across the Mountain State with our terrific guest, Tanner McGrew from Buckhannon. An amazing story, and again, it has to be an ESPN 30 for 30 at some point. Whenever it gets to the NBA, okay, we'll talk more. But you heard it here first. If somebody does an ESPN 30 for 30, I deserve a fraction of it. I'm just saying. I don't want all the credit. I'm just saying I want it. I'm just saying.
You can get a little piece of that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. But again, you can follow me on Twitter at Taylor_Kennedy7 for all the latest about this podcast. And I will catch you all next time on episode 116 of Hoops Across the Mountain State. Thank you all for listening, and stay safe.